System logs in Linux are handled just like everything else in Linux being a file. That is to say that they are just files with text that can be read or used by any other service as needed. System logs are something that you'll definitely interact with in IT positions quite heavily, so it's good to know where to find them and how to look through them for what you need. Logs are accessible through applications, system tools, and then logs. And this is a pretty typical type of log viewing application. They're all generally like this. You have some log databases on the left-hand pane that you can navigate through and select with what you need. So let's go through them and start with applications. Applications includes logs from various software applications such as web browsers, email clients, file managers, and basically any other application that generates their own log entries. Next, we have system logs, and these include logs such as kernel messages, boot logs, authentication logs, and even daemon logs, which are basically just background services in Linux that handle different tasks back and forth between services. Next, we have the security logs, and these include logs such as login attempts, authentication failures, firewall events, and other security-related events that can provide insights into potential security issues or even intrusion attempts. And then finally, there's hardware logs, and this really is just an area to monitor hardware-related events and diagnose potential issues. Okay, so let's actually go through the process of searching through our logs by clicking on that little magnifying lens at the top right. And just for an example, if we want to search for something, notice how these logs underneath all have the word root inside them for that root user we've talked about. So if we want to search for anything related to root, we can just put that text inside and search for root, and then we'll find logs associated to that root user. We can also refine our search by date by selecting a little top drop-down option and choose a date that we'd like to search for, like the day of, maybe July 9th. But if we wanted a more enriched search, we could use that little drop-down option and choose from more specific options, like custom date ranges and such. Let's actually go ahead and set the date to today. Now, I'll also add that your logs will probably look a little bit different than mine as you're doing this video in the future. So let's actually go and hunt down some logs. And no one's really sitting down looking at a log viewer for pleasure reading and enjoying all the various logs. They're actually going in here and looking for certain event IDs or codes. So in this case, let's go and find one. If we go inside of applications, we can see that there's a specific type of entry for certain applications we've opened, like Task Manager and Text Editor. We can see that these log entries here refer to the service name that we saw inside of Task Manager and System Monitor. So let's search for Get It and see all the logs associated to that specific application. So let's actually look at these log entries. So in this case, we have application log entries that suggest the Get It service was successfully activated, and there's even a file name there of Untitled Document 1. So it actually records some pretty good information. We also get these UIDs of 1000, and we'll get to that on the command line, but that's essentially our user ID of Ubuntu. We also have a PID, a process ID of 751. And that's that number that we saw inside of Task Manager and System Monitor for the specific process itself that was running. So now, just to reinforce the concept of how these logs are generated, let's actually go and open up that text editor once more. And we're going to open it up and then go back inside the logs and see what actually happened. We'll need to go and select another set of logs, then come back to applications. And if we see here, there's actually another entry that just appeared, that top one. So it's in chronological order of most recent. We can inspect these log entries even further, and they contain a lot more information. Let's go and double click that top log entry now, and when we do, we can get more information on the log itself. We can see the sender's metacity, and in this case, metacity is actually a window manager. It's actually responsible for all of these windows that we see on the screen right now. So the service of metacity itself, the window manager that is letting us move these tiles around the screen and file manager and text editor and such, that is the service that sent and recorded a log here to the application logs. Now, this log entry actually has a message associated with it, and that's pretty common. You'll always see some type of message, and inside of the message we'll have error codes and more technical information to help you debug and troubleshoot or just chase down some type of anomaly. In this case, chasing down this type of anomaly would actually just kind of lead you down a long rabbit hole. It's more of a warning type of error, and if you kind of do some Googling and research and documentation, you'll see this chases back to even 2009 with the way that the window manager is trying to draw the windows on the screen and which windows are taking precedence and state over others. So that will come down to us and our experience as we gain more exposure to operating systems and technology to decide what is actually an error, what's a warning, and what is just a general log entry of activity. All right, and that's basically looking at logs in a typical log viewer. Now, fortunately for us, it's not really this dry in the real world. There are typically better forms of software that aggregate all these logs to make it a lot easier to read and digest. But if we ever wanted to go back to the source, this is where we would go and determine what exactly is happening with a specific service or problem that we're encountering.